Hello everyone, welcome back to our challenge mode park. Let's just see how we're doing to start with then. As you can see, we've got the main street that we built in the last episode. That's looking pretty good. So we've got a good selection of shops, stalls and food places for the guests. So that's all sorted. As you can see, our park rating's really low at the moment. So we could do with getting some rides in the park, I think, and we've spent about 17 grand on this main street. So yeah, really I think we need to get some rides and coasters in the park. We can take loans out if need be, just to get the park sort of off its feet. But yeah, in this episode I'm going to focus on getting some rides and coasters in the park. I think the first thing I'll do is put some sort of gentle ride here, either the carousel or I was going to say the wave swinger, but we haven't unlocked that yet. So yeah, we'll probably start with the carousel here and maybe give it a cover or something. Then I want to look at putting the first coaster in the park. I mean, looking at the amount of space we've taken already for the main street, we're going to have to be really careful with space in this park. I'm sure we could do a sort of compact layout with one of these. It looks like we've unlocked the inverted coaster as well now, which we'll probably use at some point in this park. But for now, I think I'm going to use one of the classic coaster types. And we'll just get into the time lapse and see what we end up building. So I'll see you all over there. Welcome to the first time lapse then, and I do find it funny how I always say I'll see you over there as if it's like going to be somewhere completely different that I'm seeing you. You're viewing the same video in the same place, and you know, it's not like I've gone over to Australia to record it or something. But yeah, that aside, the first thing I put in is the carousel. At some point I'm going to have an attempt at putting a cover over this one, which I think I'll be able to do a bit easier with rotation anarchy and construction anarchy, because obviously I'm not normally very good at doing carousel covers, so I think I'll have a go in this one. And we get straight on with the first coaster then, because we need to start getting the coaster count up so that the park starts making money. That's our first priority, and the way I'm going to do things is sort of by phases. So this really is phase one, and we're looking back to whenever the park first opened. You know, I'm not going to put a particular date on it, but back then they only had these more old school styles of coasters. So this is like the classic Schwarzkopf looping coaster, which obviously we're using the steel coaster track, or the steel coaster rather, to represent. And I'm trying to keep it very classic layout. Done some searching on Google for various layouts of these types of coasters in real life. I'm not entirely sure exactly which one this is based on or anything, but it's just you know, having a look at all of the all of them, and putting something together that resembles this coaster type. And I'm actually really happy with the layout of this one. I think it's one of my better layouts, because you know, I'm not the best at building coaster layouts in the game, especially ones that look realistic, but I think this one really is quite believable for a classic looping coaster like this. And I just went for really generic colours with the white track and the blue supports in the end, and I coloured the trains in the sort of colour scheme that we're using for the park. So it's this maroony sort of blue colour that you can see at the entrance as well. You see Alton Towers use that colour as well quite a lot for you know, for their marketing, for their media and everything, and you see it quite a bit around the park. And I thought this would be quite a cool idea. Their first big coaster, their first big attraction, you know, they use that colour scheme for the trains. So it's very iconic, very sort of noticeable. And yeah, I never normally put that much thought into a coaster train colour, but yeah, in this one, that's what we're going to done. I'm also trying to make sure that the operations run perfectly on these coasters. So there's 2 trains running on the track, and I've got it set to something like 55 minimum weight, 60 maximum weight. So the other train has to do the whole circuit, because there's one block break at the end, before the next one will go, and that way it doesn't get stuck at the top of the lift hill. Some people have been giving me advice on that sort of thing in the comments. Thank you very much for that. I am trying to take it on board and do something that works a little bit better in terms of operations. Now that the coaster's in place, I need to connect it to the main part of the park. I did have a good long think about how I wanted the layout of this park to be, and at some point it may even be that this coaster is removed as we unlock more modern coasters, and the park goes through its different phases, goes through the years, and they decide that they want more modern rides in. So I just put this not too far from the entrance, but so that you could sort of see it in the background as you're coming down the main street. You can see the big two loops as you're coming down towards the lake, but without people having to go right over to the back of the park while we haven't got a lot there, because from a gameplay point of view that wouldn't be very efficient and wouldn't really work. I was running out of money at this point as well. I'd already taken one loan out, so I thought I'm just going to have to get a few thrill rides in, and then take a second really small loan and use it to build a junior coaster. Now, this is the first time that I've really started struggling with the terrain in the park, because it's the first time that I've had to build anything on these hills, and this is exactly the challenge I wanted to give myself, but I'm starting to regret it now already, because I've found it really, really difficult to make a sort of believable and semi-realistic junior coaster layout on this hill that didn't look atrocious. So I just had to keep going back and finding ways to make it look good whilst using the terrain to its advantage, because obviously this is something that the designers in real life would do. They'd think, right, how can we utilise the terrain that it's on, so it doesn't have to be raised too high off the ground, which is another sort of rule for this park. You won't get a coaster in the park that's any taller than the looping coaster that I put in already. Even that's probably a little bit tall, but it's it's fine. It's a bit above tree height, but we can live with that, I guess. It fits in with the rules that I've set for the scenario anyway. It's just under the limit. But there you can see the completed layout. Went for a really basic red colour. Not overly keen with how it looks, to be honest, but it's fine. It's old school, it's a classic coaster, classic family junior coaster type thing, and we just end up calling it the Hungry Caterpillar, I think. So we've got a family coaster and we've got a thrill coaster in the park, or somewhat of a thrill coaster for the time anyway, and we've got some flat rides. So yeah, everything's in place now to hopefully start making a bit of a profit. So let's get into the live portion and we'll see how the park is doing. So I'll see you over there. So the good news is we seem to be turning a very small profit at the moment. £119.33 we're making there for the month, I guess. We open that up and take a little bit more, look in a bit more detail. Yes, the past 3 months we've turned a small profit, so at least we're not going to face imminent bankruptcy. I've got the steel coaster set at £12 currently, and the junior coaster is £6, and guests seem to be perfectly content to ride it. As you can see, the operations are running nice and smoothly on that. No one's having to wait around on lift hills or anything. Everything's running nice and smoothly. Let's just see what the guest satisfaction is like at the moment. So the experience rating is low, but that's the reviews that people leave after they leave. So I think hopefully they will improve just over time. I think we just need to leave it running for a bit longer now. If we can build up a bit of money and pay off these loans, because we're not strapped for time, we can do some of this off camera, get those paid off, and then start making a bit more money. I could do with putting a station on this one, and obviously theming this up, because at the moment we've just got a big blank plaza which I really don't know what to do with at the moment, to be honest. And there's other guests walking around like zombies because they're tired, but we've got enough benches and stuff in the park as well. I can just see there that someone's broken one, so let's just replace that. In fact, that might be worth having a look at as well. Vandalism. No, we're looking pretty good apart from that. Decoration rating's fine. Obviously it's green in the areas where I've done the main street and themed everything up, and it's just sort of no decoration around here. So that's the next thing really that I want to work on. Getting some nice scenery in, and I want to do a realistic style station for each of these coasters. As you can see, the queue for this one's a bit of a cattle pen. So yeah, I think that's believable for the era of this coaster. Maybe we can get some canopies over here to make it look a little bit nicer, and yeah, add all of the cool theming stuff in. So I'm going to get straight into the next time lapse, and I'll see you all over there. Firstly, I must apologise, recording this bit of the time lapse, or the commentary rather. I have a bit of a cold, or I'm sort of recovering from it now. I've been horrible for a few days now, but I'm feeling a lot better. It's just, you'll probably still hear it in my voice a bit, so like I said, I do apologise for that. I hope it doesn't affect the commentary too much. And as you can see, the first thing we're working on here for the coaster station is the transfer track. Initially I built it sort of 3 pieces long next to the brake run, and then when seeing the train next to it, I realised that it's not long enough to actually hold the train, so I did make a minor adjustment to the layout and extend that out to be 4 pieces so that it's as believable as it possibly can be in this game. And yeah, just using the help of Construction Anarchy there as well to build some extra sort of details on the transfer track, sort of support structure, I guess, that holds it up. For the station itself then, very simple, just using the curved roof pieces, which I love to use, and then to make it look a little bit less on grid, I built the rest of the structure with basic shapes and pillars. I've been using Rotation Anarchy quite a lot to get pillars in different places and different sort of alignments to what we could have before, because they're a little bit thinner than borders, so they work better for some places where borders just seem a little bit too thick for what you're trying to sort of use them for. So that's a really handy little technique that we can do in this build. I do go back to the station later on in this time lapse because I wasn't completely happy with the way it's looking there. I thought it was a little bit too basic, so we just add a little bit more to it later on, but we'll get to that at a point. I have added a gradient to this roof as well, which is very, very slight and not that noticeable at all, but I just feel it gives it a little bit of extra sort of texture, I guess. Or not texture, but just adds a little bit more interest to it. And as you can see, the fences that I put around the coaster station are also using the sort of Rotation Anarchy pillar trick as well, so that we can get or actually no, sorry, I take that back. These ones are made from basic shapes, I think, and just placed on 1/10 of a grid space, and then the pillars are just pillars, obviously. Yeah, trying to remember how I did all this now. And then we just use the normal sort of the usual fencing, but just change it to the blue colour scheme that we've got going on for the queue path as well. Afterwards, I add a cover to the queue path as well, just in case it rains. If this park's based in the UK, then it's bound to rain quite a lot, because you can never rely on the weather here in the UK. And also adding a little canopy there with the sign for the name of the ride, which is Revolution, just underneath this piece of track. Obviously, that you know, you see that quite a lot on real coasters, that they'll put a little canopy under a section of track where a path goes underneath it, just for safety reasons, I guess. There's still a bit that's kind of exposed there as well behind that section, but yeah, I think we've covered the sort of track up enough to make it realistic enough for the sake of this build. I do have to end up changing things about a bit later on anyway, which, like I say, we'll get back to. It's one of those sort of cases in this one where I built everything, I was sort of 75% happy with it, but then I thought about it and thought, how can we improve on certain things, and then I went back and changed them. But we'll see that later in the video. At this point, I wanted to get a train in the park. I'd left it a bit late because I'd already started doing the layout for the path work and everything like that in the park and placed some rides down. I really should have done this first, but I did want to get that train in. We do need a transport ride, so I just had to make it work around this layout for the junior coaster, which, by the way, unless I've not been watching the time lapse properly, I don't think you've... No, I'm actually losing the plot because I built both the coasters before, didn't I? Yeah, ignore that. Ignore me, I'm talking rubbish. So the train sort of runs adjacent to the small brake run there of the junior coaster and then heads underground. And it's just really tight around the sort of perimeter of the park entrance here. But as we move on and the park expands, I'll make sure that the train actually gets room, like has space sort of allocated to it, so that it's not so tight in amongst all the other things. Although I do think it's quite cool to get the interaction there with the coaster and have everything really close together. It's just a bit of a pain to build. You can also see that I've placed a jumper ride there. I think we had that before, but I think I moved it because I decided that was a better placement for it and it would work better over there, so that's what we go for. And we've got some nice tunnels there as well for the train and the coaster, sort of running adjacent to each other, but I spend way too long fiddling about with that, trying to make it work. And yeah, I go back to all that later on as well and improve it. I do a little bit off camera as well with that, just to cover up some of the ugly sort of terrain work and stuff, you know, the sort of vertical terrain. Here you can see then the canopy, the coaster station for the junior coaster is in place. Just using the basic roof tiles, but again, I thought this didn't look quite right. I thought it was a little bit too big and covered over the path a little bit too much. So I ended up cutting it down and making it much smaller, and the revised version of this looks a lot better. So you just have to bear with me and trust me on this one. Once I sort of finished these parts of the build, I did go back and make some major improvements, in my opinion, to the way this area looks. Because, you know, we want to utilise the tools that we've got to the best of our ability as well, having the availability, you know, having the option to use construction and rotation anarchy. We want to make sure that we're not just places up and down that doesn't look great and thinking, well, that's the best we can do. Because, you know, there is more that we can do now using these tools as well. Just placing down a bunch of foliage then to greenify everything and make it more eco and nice to look at. And I'd love sticking the big oak trees in the middle of helixes to the junior coaster. I think that would be really cool, riding that in real life, go like whizzing around the trees. Yeah, I think that would be a nice sensation. And then just using these nice little flowery bushes. I've got some white and some pink ones there to cover up the ground. around the plaza here and around the coaster itself. And then originally here I just wanted a central plaza with a big oak tree in the middle, but I had a brainwave when I went to bed one night, and I thought, no, we can do more with that. We can place a nice sort of structure in the middle there. So you'll see in a bit that I changed that up as well. It is a really good idea sometimes to go back to your builds and think, what can I, if you come up with some ideas of how you could make it look better when you're away from the game, then when you come back to it, implement them things, and just see how it looks. Like here, with the steel coaster station, I'm just adding in some more support beams because I didn't think it looked right just having only the four corners. And what I do as well, I put some more canopies over the edge, and I just think it has a more full feeling. I just think it looks a lot better how we've done that. You're rotating the pillars as well there to act as supports for these canopies, and copy it over and put it on the other side as well. And it's amazing that just a simple touch like that really sort of improved the way the station looked as well. And it's funny actually, because this coaster I come back to several times. I still haven't quite finished working on it even at this point, because there's other little things that I just keep thinking, no, we should add that to it, and it's things that I should be adding to probably every coaster that I do, but a lot of the time I forget to add these little details. Back to the junior coaster station then, as we're jumping around a bit here, and again this looks far better. Just a simple adjustment, sinking in some wooden sort of tiled roofs in with the other roof to give more variation and shrink the size down of the station so that it's not imposing over the whole path. I thought it was just a bit much before, just for a junior coaster, and I much prefer how that looks now. So I'm really glad that I made that change. And then you can see a lot of the queue path as well now, the queue line for the coaster. And here's the aforementioned central plaza sort of building. I don't know what you'd call this really. It's just a cover really, like a path cover. So guests can sit on the benches and keep dry if it is raining. We would probably put a stool in the middle there or something. I haven't actually done that for this particular build because it's for like grid spaces and it wouldn't really have worked. But again, using rotation anarchy there to make a nice custom roof. And that's pretty much it for there. You can see now I'm adding some supports to the loops on the coaster, which I felt was very important. I'm not very good at custom supports, so I just did very, very basic ones using pillars, and I felt that was fine as long as they're supported. It doesn't just look like they're floating in the air, because unfortunately you do lose a lot of supports, and some pieces just don't have the right supports with them, with the in-game ones. So sometimes you do have to add your own stuff in, and I had to move this sign for the ride as well, a grid space forward, because it was covered up by the support and you couldn't see it from path. So there we go, that's sorted. Now I'm going to build a cover for the ride cover for the Twister ride. So for this one I've just used some of the similar basic roof pieces and then added a little bit of a building into the middle, just a fake sort of facade type thing. I don't know how realistic that would really be, but I think it looks quite nice, and that's what we're focusing on really, just making all the scenery around this part of the park look a bit nicer. And I really like the colours of this one. I think they work really well together. They almost give off a little bit of an alpine vibe, but at this point in the park and in this stage that the park's in, that during this sort of time, they wouldn't really be theming stuff at all. Everything would just be built with whatever materials they've got, basically, to house the attractions and things that they need in the park. There wouldn't be too much thought put into what the theming style is actually meant to be. So yeah, it's all kept pretty simple. And now you're going to see a first from me. I'm actually building a carousel cover, and even with the tools to make this easier, I still couldn't make one that I was that happy with. I'd say I'm 60% happy with this one. I'm just not very good at building carousel covers. Obviously I do get it perfectly circular pretty much, and I build up a few layers, but I just couldn't find a sort of colour scheme and design that I was overly happy with. But it works, it'll do. It's functional. Sometimes you've just got to accept that that's the best that it can look, and yeah, it's fine. I'm happy enough with it. We do go back and add a load of lamps to it as well later on, which you'll see, just to give it that classic sort of carousel fairground ride style feel to it. And yeah, I mean, it looks okay as a centerpiece, and it fits in with the scenery around it. It's not terrible. It's just, I've seen people do better carousel covers in vanilla. It's just not my thing, really. I'm just not good at doing circular stuff, or, housing something in a circular sort of thing in Parkitect, even with the mods. But yeah, like I say, it's fine. And then you can see I'm just using the little umbrellas there as cover for the sort of the desk where, what do you call, the ride operator sits. And you can see I've done that with a couple of rides there, and it's just basically so that we can get that purple colour scheme in for the park again. And we're doing the same actually here with flags as well, going up the lift hill for the coaster. And you can see I've also added in some custom catwalks there, to make the coaster look a little bit more realistic as well. I think that's all the work that we do on the steel coaster. I think that's actually finally finished, other than adding a bit of foliage and stuff around it. Yeah, just jumping back to the carousel there to add the lights in as well. And yeah, I think the lights improve it quite a bit as well. It looks really nice at night time as well, lighting up like Blackpool illuminations there. So just a few finishing touches really. There is a bit I did off camera. I added some walls and stuff to cover up some of the terrain around where we've got the trains and junior coasters sort of going in and out of terrain, and that'll get sorted, and trying to sink in these as well, because I think the tunnels actually look okay when they're just going straight into a vertical wall, but if there's any angle to them, they don't. So I'm trying to hide any tunnels with angles there. Again, I think I said this before, but if you could just recolour those tunnels, honestly, I think that would make all the difference. But yeah, either way, I think it's fine. Here we're just doing a little pavilion for the queue for the jumper ride, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Pretty basic stuff, not really too much to say about it. And yeah, we're just sort of doing some finishing touches really to this central area. It came together pretty quickly actually. I didn't spend too many hours doing this bit, and that means we can move on in the next one to the next section of the park, whatever that's going to be. I've got no idea where we're going to take things from here, but I guess we need to keep getting the coasters in really, and try and start working towards the goals. Not that we're in a rush, but yeah, we might as well get another coaster in the next episode, but that's something to think about, I guess. as and when the time comes. Here you can see that I'm just sorting out this little sort of seating area over the water, where the Ferris wheel is, and I think, yeah, that looks good enough. I'm happy enough with that. We might change the watercolour at some point as well for the lake. That's not something I've thought about yet, but this blue is probably a bit bright for this park. But yeah, we can go back to that at a later stage. I'm not going to do a tour of what we've built, but I am going to do some cinematics and take you for a ride on the 2 coasters that we've built. So what will happen is I'll see you all in the next episode. I completely forgot about what I was going to say then. But yeah, there's going to be some cinematics in the end, and I'll see you all in the next episode. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.